Hello, I'm Jim Denman with Clark County Close-Up. Thank you both for meeting with us.
Thank you.
Chuck, first let's talk about construction activity and permitting. What are you seeing this year?
You know, this year we're seeing an increase in our residential permits. Right now, we're up about 60% year over year from the same time last year. Commercial, we're at about 10 to 15% over what we saw last year. So definitely a climb, keeping us busy in the permitting center. So
Now, how does that compare to pre-recession levels? Still down?
we're still down from the pre-recession levels. Pre-recession levels, we really saw about anywhere from 1,400 to 2,300 permits a year, especially on the residential side. So still not quite at those numbers, but definitely increasing from the recession years.
Good, good. So what are the main reasons for requiring building permits and remodeling permits?
You know, when we're looking at building permits, I mean, it definitely is usually involving a home. It's fire and life safety first and foremost. Those are the important reasons. But secondly, we're finding homeowners are sometimes having issues with financial institutions because they're wanting to see proof that everything was done to code. The only way to do that is through the permitting process with inspections. So we have seen some residents who have had some issues with that.
Okay. And then how are the cost of the permits determined?
The cost of permits are generally determined by the building code that's adopted by the jurisdiction. So Clark County's adopted the building code. From there, the jurisdiction does have flexibility in how they assess those fees or changes that they may want to make to them.
Okay. And then what are some of the main areas where you're doing permitting, such as residential you already mentioned, I'm assuming commercial? How do you kind of break those up?
Well, residential has really been new construction this year, whereas commercial's been tenant improvements. So a big difference. We've not seen a lot of brand new commercial building right now. So the tenant improvements have been coming in. They've been generally existing space, obviously, since they're tenant improvements. They're new businesses. They haven't been businesses that are relocating to a new space.
Okay.
So.
And what's kind of your more active areas? Residential, is that?
I would say right now residential truly is the more active area, especially with the new home building.
Okay. Marty?
Yes.
There's been a lot of talk from developers that time is money. So what steps has your department already taken to help speed up the permitting process?
Well, one of the things we've done, and it's been a good year or 18 months, we've developed the 60-day development review process. And when you're starting new development from bare dirt to some commercial operation, you go through land use engineering and inspection for site improvements. We used to take upwards of 120 days to get a decision. We whittled that down to 78. And then working with the development community and the county's development and engineering advisory board, we put together a 60-day review, which essentially is we're looking at planning and engineering review at the same time. So when we get a land use approval, we also have your engineering approval. And we, again, a developer coming in with all their materials spot on, then we can get that decision done in 60 days and they can actually do their site improvements. So that's a huge savings of time over a couple years ago.
Yeah, almost halved it. Okay. What steps were taken with residential developments?
We've recently been through some lean process improvement work, and Chuck will be talking a little bit about that. But we're looking at front-loading some of the requirements that kind of got bogged down in the middle of the process, principally plot plan and stormwater review. So we're hoping to at least have the time of getting permits for residential out the door.
Okay. Now how did you involve developers as you're kind of going through this process to see what they wanted,
Yeah.
suggestions they had?
We did. We actually had a 5-day work session with staff from all parts of Clark County. We actually brought in some builders and an engineer who works with the building community on identifying kind of the stumbling blocks in our residential permitting process. And we kind of tested how we could make improvements there. So they were involved for a couple of those days of that 5-day work session. So we've also gone to the Building Industry Association recently, talked about what we're doing in the permit center, and involved them continuously through making those improvements.
Okay. Chuck, Marty mentioned lean.
Yes.
That's been going around. Can you talk about first what is lean and how did your department participate and what changes is it making?
Absolutely. Lean is really an operational strategy. It's eliminating waste and increasing productivity and the efficiency of the workplace and the impact to the customers as well. From our standpoint as staff, we had probably half the staff was involved in the Lean process and really identifying and looking at what the residential building permit process looked like initially and what we wanted it to look like and what Lean could do for us in that shift and that change. Really for us, what Lean has been is a shift in the way we think. We're going from, well, this is how we've always done it, to really that thought of, is there a better way? And even now, as we get ready to move forward and bring that on live, it'll go live on July 1st. Staff's already looking at other opportunities where we could implement Lean processes to make that much more efficient for our customers and the citizens.
And the Lean process could work with any different department. It's just that you're utilizing it for your department.
Absolutely. There have been other departments at the county that have utilized it as well because the concept of Lean really does work.
Okay. Now, Marty, computer software is kind of the lifeblood now of operational departments.
Yes,
I've read in some of your materials that you are considering changing out software. Can you talk about it and what you hope to gain from that?
That's correct. Our system was installed at the county in 1999, and I believe it was a few years old at the time we were going through that acquisition and installation. So it's nearly a 20-year-old program. We recently, last September, we issued an RFP for vendors to provide us a new permitting processing system. So we are actually going through this week and next week. We have vendors coming in to do demonstrations with a variety of staff. The first day we had Monday on the overview and the e-government, we had like 55 people. So when we get these two vendors demoed, we'll look at who they provide services to, maybe do some site visits elsewhere, and determine which of those two would be best for Clark County, negotiate with them, and hopefully execute a contract by September. What we're looking at is about a 12 to 14 month process to move from our Tidemark system to a new system, and we have budget authority. The Board of County Commissioners on April 30th approved a budget for me to replace the system, and it carries through this biennium end of 2014. If we need a little bit more time, I know the board will grant me that. So we're excited about the opportunity because a 20-year-old system, nearly a 20-year-old system, is really remarkable in today's technological world.
Yeah, so would I'm assuming a lot more functionality?
A lot more functionality, a lot more e-government, the citizen access portal, much more mobile technology for field applications for our inspectors, code enforcement officers, animal control officers. The capabilities of what's out there today is light years ahead of what we have today, the system we have currently. So one of the things we saw first thing Monday was the e-government and the options that are available for people to, from their home or from their office, submit plans, pay online, all kinds of things. So it's really an exciting field for us.
Big step, big step. Chuck, we've been talking about ways your department has been improving efficiency overall, speeding up the process. What about development fees? Anything to reduce the cost of development fees?
You know, the department, excuse me, is always looking at fees and ways that we can make changes to make it better for the customers in the community. One of the things that we did recently with the building department is really looked at the smaller permit requirements, like your water heaters, air conditioners, small decks, different things like that. Really looked at what are the fees we're charging right now and what are the opportunities that we could reduce those. So along with the building official and Marty, they really looked at the opportunities, presented that to the board, and they go into effect July 1st. So a lot of our citizens will see some decreases in their fees.
Wonderful. Marty, monster hearing yesterday,
Yes.
5+ hours. Fee holidays. Let's talk. What's the latest?
The latest, sure. So the latest, the board adopted what's titled a job creation resolution. It's a temporary waiver of building, engineering, environmental, traffic impact fees for all kinds of development. It is not something for residential, single family or multifamily, so it's for commercial and office and industrial. We had a resolution in place that had a 100% waiver on non-retail and 50% on retail. It did carry a job creation requirement. So the newest fee waiver or job creation resolution, we no longer have a job creation requirement, and it's a 100% waiver on all kinds of, again, commercial, industrial, those kinds of fees. It also waives the traffic impact fees. Couple other changes. The earlier resolutions did not touch on nonprofits and churches. They were not eligible projects. This current resolution that was adopted yesterday does allow for churches and nonprofits to come in. The other big piece is the termination of this. The earlier versions have had something tied to a fixed date, principally around the budget. This resolution is in place until our unemployment rate is at or better than the state of Washington's average. So we're going to be tracking the fees that we waive. The board's very interested in seeing what we're waiving and seeing what the impact is. What are we going to see on the jobs creation side? What are we going to see on new construction, on retail sales tax revenues? So there's going to be some metrics in place for the board to look at monthly. And they are very interested in keeping their finger on the pulse of this program and relative success of it.
Great. Long term, any other steps you're considering on overall efficiencies and the permitting process?
Well, we've applied the lean process to single family residential. We'd like to, when we build the track record of success, move that to commercial buildings and office buildings and those kinds of things. And then next to single family on tax lots on 5 acres, 2.5 acres. I can imagine a time when we're going to be looking at lean for the land use and engineering review. It's a more complicated, a little bit more complicated world, but we can look at that application to the entitlement process. Back to the permitting system. At the end of 2014, my vision would be that we have a new system in place and folks can apply online, pay online. Our plans would be reviewed online and submitted back to the applicant. And many of the people who are looking for that, they're looking for fewer trips into the permit center, electronic submittal and review. So those are things that I can see a real watershed change in how we do business, and especially for people who are already engaged in some of these technology advancements. When they're looking at mobile devices and iPads and iPhones, really kind of hitching our horse to that.
Okay. Well, summertime, we were talking about a lot of big projects, residential projects,
Yep.
but also it's a time for a lot of homeowners to do some remodeling jobs.
Sure.
So what are some of the typical household remodel works that require a permit?
Yeah, Chuck alluded to it earlier. Water heater replacements, swapping out an old air conditioner with a new heat pump, re-roofing, siding, window replacement, carports, those kinds of things. So the board on June 4 adopted fees for those minor remodel projects. That the fees were really quite high, especially compared to the cost of the job. So many of these can be issued over the counter, and so instead of paying $1,200 for a carport, for example, it might be a $250 and over the counter issuance. So those are things that we're looking at. We had a successful what we call book of 10. So subcontractors in the HVAC world, for example, they could buy a book of 10 permits for swapping out air conditioners. We've expanded that program to a book of 10 for re-roof, siding, and window replacement. So a contractor could come in and buy 10 permits and get for $888. So it's $88 a permit for re-roof job, siding job, window replacement job. So those are things that are available for homeowners who are doing a small remodel project.
Okay. So that would save them then 10 separate trips down.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. And again, the overall goal of why you're doing this is to make sure these remodels are done safely.
Correct. Yeah, the building code requires certain permits for certain activities, and it's for safety, and also it's really a protection on the investment homeowners make when they're doing a remodel job. And somewhere down the road, they sell their home. The disclosure form is, have you made any changes? Have you done any additions? Have you done any remodel? And if so, show us the permit. So Chuck made a comment about financial institutions. When you're selling property and you've built an accessory structure, if you added on, that permit is required. So it's also protecting an investment that those people make.
Okay, so for those developers out there, remodel people out there, they want more information about the permitting process, where can they go?
They can go to our website. That's clark.wa.gov/development.
Okay, and telephone number 397-2375.
Yes.
Yes,
correct.
That is the phone
Yep.
number, yes.
Well, thank you both for meeting with us, and good luck with all these initiatives.
Thank you.
Thank you.